3 days after Mrs. Cho was removed from the estate, a black envelope arrived at the front gate. No name on the front, no return address. Just my name written in the center in small, neat handwriting, the kind that looks calm because the person writing it has nothing to be afraid of. The guard brought it to me personally, which meant Mr. Kang had already seen it. He was standing in the hallway outside my room when I opened the door, arms folded, watching my face as I turned the envelope over in my hands. "It came for you," he said, "but it's not from anyone I recognize." I broke the seal. Inside was a single photograph, no note, no explanation. Just a photograph of me, taken from a distance through a window, at an angle that told me whoever took it had been standing outside this estate in the dark. Looking in, I was in the kitchen in the photo, standing at the sink, alone. This was taken just 2 nights ago. Someone had been watching me from outside these gates, past Mr. Kang's security, past his guards and his cameras and everything he had built to keep danger out, and they wanted me to know it. My hands were steady, which surprised me. 4 months ago, this would have sent me straight to the floor. But something had shifted inside me since that night in the hall. I looked up at Mr. Kang. "They're not done," I said. "No," he agreed quietly. "They're just starting." Mr. Kang called his inner circle together that morning. I was not supposed to be in the room. I was standing just outside the door, back flat against the wall, listening. I know that sounds wrong, but this was about my life. I had earned the right to hear it. There were 3 of them inside, men whose names I had heard but whose faces I had only seen in passing. Roman, the head of security, Jin, who handled intelligence, and a woman named Seo-yeon, who apparently knew things about people that those people did not even know about themselves. Jin spoke first. Mrs. Cho was a mid-level operative. She had one handler above her, a man named Director O. He runs a private intelligence firm that sells information to whoever pays highest. He's the one who pulled the Maid's file and identified her connection to Kang. "Where is he?" Mr. Kang asked. "That's the problem," Jin said. "He isn't anywhere. We've been trying to locate him since yesterday. His office is empty. His apartment is cleared out. He moved before we even finished dealing with Cho." Silence. Then Seo-yeon spoke. "He knew we would come looking, which means he has someone on the inside feeding him information, even now. Even after Cho is gone." My stomach turned to ice. There was still a leak inside this house, and until they found it, I was not safe, and neither was Mr. Kang. That evening, Mr. Kang called me into his study and told me everything they had discussed. He did not soften it or leave pieces out. I appreciated that more than I could say. "Director O did not choose you randomly," he explained, leaning back in his chair and looking at me carefully. "He chose you because your connection to me is genuine. Real emotion is harder to fake and harder to fight. He planned to use you as a bridge, gain your trust, use your access to me, and eventually create a situation that would force me into a compromising position." "But it didn't work," I said. "It didn't work because you broke," he said. "In the hall, when you told the truth. That wasn't weakness, by the way. That was the one move he hadn't planned for." I sat with that for a moment. "He's going to try again," I said. "Isn't he?" Mr. Kang nodded slowly. He invested too much to walk away, and now that his operation inside this house has been exposed, he's going to feel cornered. Cornered people make aggressive moves. He paused. "Which is why I need you to do something difficult." I looked at him. "What?" "I need you to help me find the leak inside this house," he said, "and I need you to do it without letting them know you're looking." I was not a spy. I had no training, no experience, and no idea how to find someone who did not want to be found. What I did have was invisibility. 4 months of being overlooked, ignored, and underestimated by every person in this house. They had all looked through me like I was furniture. And furniture, it turns out, sees everything. Mr. Kang and I built a plan over the next 2 days. It was simple on the surface. I would go back to my normal duties as if nothing had changed. I would be quiet and watchful. I would pay attention to who asked questions they should not be asking about Mr. Kang's schedule, his meetings, the security rotations. Seo-yeon coached me for 1 hour each morning in a room with no cameras. She taught me how to notice without looking like I was noticing, how to respond to questions in ways that gave nothing away, how to remember exact words without writing them down. Song Yi was the only person I told. I needed one person I trusted completely, and after everything that had happened between us, she deserved to be that person. She listened without interrupting, then looked at me and said, "Tell me what you need." That was all. No hesitation. 2 words. I had never been more grateful for anything in my life. 5 on the 4th day, I found something. It was small. The kind of thing I would have walked past 3 months ago without blinking. One of the newer kitchen workers, a man named Tae-min who had been hired 6 weeks before I arrived, was standing near the back delivery entrance during a time he was supposed to be prepping the dining room. He had his phone pressed close to his chest, angled away from the corridor camera. He was typing fast. When he heard my footsteps, he pocketed the phone in one smooth motion and picked up a nearby cloth like he had been wiping the counter the whole time. It was too smooth. Practiced. I smiled at him and asked if he had seen the spare dish towels, keeping my voice easy and bored. He pointed toward the supply room without meeting my eyes. That evening, I told So-yeon. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Tae-min was recommended by a staffing agency that we now believe Director Oh has connections to. We looked at him briefly when Cho was removed and cleared him. Apparently we were too quick. She looked at me with something close to respect. Good eye? I nodded and kept my face calm. Inside, my heart was hammering, because finding Tae-min was only half of it. The real question was what to do with him, and I already had an idea that I knew Mr. Kang was not going to like. Absolutely not, Mr. Kang said. Hear me out, I said. We were in the study. It was late. He was standing by the window with his arms crossed, and the particular expression he wore when he had already decided something but was forcing himself to listen anyway. I laid it out clearly. Tae-min was passing information to Director Oh. If Mr. Kang's team moved on him now, Oh would know instantly. The information would simply stop. Oh would disappear deeper, and they would lose the one thread connecting them to him. But if I fed Tae-min something false, something believable, something that would make Oh move, they could track where he went and who he contacted. You want to use yourself as bait, Mr. Kang said flatly. I want to use information as bait, I corrected. There's a difference. The difference is smaller than you think. You told me I was done being afraid here, I said. I'm not afraid. I'm angry, and I want to finish this. The room was quiet for a long moment. Outside, rain had started again, tapping steadily against the glass. Mr. Kang turned from the window. He looked at me for a long time, the same way he had looked at the security monitor the first night, reading something written in small print. One condition, he said finally. Name it. You don't take a single step without me knowing exactly where you are. The false information took So-yeon one day to construct. It was elegant in its simplicity. A rumor passed through me to Song Yi in a location where Tae-min would overhear it, that Mr. Kang was planning to move a significant sum of money to a private account offshore the following Thursday, and that the transfer documents were being kept temporarily in the East Wing records room. None of it was true. The records room was empty. Thursday was chosen because it gave Director Oh 4 days to react, which So-yeon said was exactly the window a man like him needed to make a move he would later regret. I delivered the information on a Tuesday afternoon, standing in the kitchen with Song Yi, voice low but not so low that it would seem like a secret. I watched Tae-min from the corner of my eye. He did not react visibly, but 30 minutes later, he stepped outside for what he told the head cook was a cigarette break. He did not smoke. I had never once seen him smoke in 6 weeks. Jin tracked the signal from his phone during that break. It connected to a number registered under a shell company with a mailing address in Busan. That address connected through 2 layers of paperwork to a private office suite currently leased under a false name. Director Oh. They had him. They moved on Thursday, exactly as the false information had promised. I was not there for any of it. Mr. Kang had been firm about that, and this time I did not argue. I sat in the study with So-yeon and watched a live feed from Jin's team on a tablet, my knees pressed together, barely breathing. Director Oh's office, a rented space on the 14th floor of a quiet commercial building, was empty when they arrived. He had cleared out again. My stomach dropped, but Jin had expected this. His team had not gone to the office. That was a diversion. The real move had been made 2 hours earlier, when they traced the phone signal from Tai Min's contact number to a second location, a private parking structure 3 blocks from the commercial building. That was where they found him. Director O was a small man. That was the first thing I noticed from the feed. Neat gray suit, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of face that would disappear in any crowd. He did not run when Jin's team surrounded him. He stood very still and looked at the camera like he had known it would end like this and had simply decided to face it with dignity. So-yeon exhaled beside me. "It's done," she said. I nodded, but something was still sitting wrong in my chest and I could not figure out what it was yet. Mr. Kang questioned Director O himself. I was not in the room, but So-yeon told me afterward what was said. O had confirmed everything. The surveillance of the estate, the placement of Mrs. Cho, the decision to use me as a tool. He had spoken about all of it calmly, like a man recounting a business strategy that had simply not worked out. But there was one thing he said that So-yeon repeated to me word for word. The girl was not my original target, O had told Mr. Kang. She was a means to an end. My client wanted something specific from you. Not money, not territory, information. About a transfer that happened 12 years ago, the night her father died. Mr. Kang had gone very still. "What client?" he had asked. O had smiled for the first time. "The kind who never uses their real name. But I can tell you this. They have been looking for what her father took from that alley the night he saved your life. And they believe the girl knows where it is. Whether she knows it. That's a different question." So-yeon looked at me carefully as she finished speaking. I felt the floor shift beneath me. My father had taken something from that alley, something someone had been searching for 12 years. And they believed the answer was inside me, buried in memories I had spent my whole life trying not to look at. That night I could not sleep. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling of my room, and tried to remember. Really remember. Not the blurry impressions I had always pushed away, but the actual details of that night when I was 8 years old. The fire had not been a fire. I understood that now. It had been a muzzle flash. I had seen it through a chain-link fence and not had a word for it at the time, so my child's brain had filed it as fire. The shouting had been 2 men arguing. One of them had been my father, and my father had pushed me behind a dumpster and told me to stay down. Before he went back, before he helped a stranger and did not come home. But there was something else. A memory I had always stopped just before reaching, like a door I had always left shut. He had pressed something into my hands before he sent me behind the dumpster. Something small and hard and cold. I sat up in bed. My hands were shaking, not from fear this time, from the effort of remembering. What had he put in my hands? I went to Mr. Kang's study at 2 a.m. He was still awake. I had begun to understand that he rarely slept before 3. He looked up when I pushed the door open and did not seem surprised to see me. I sat down across from him and told him everything, the memory, the muzzle flash I had mistaken for fire, my father's hands pressing something into mine before he turned back toward the alley. "I don't know what it was," I said. "I was 8. I was terrified. I think I must have dropped it or hidden it. I don't remember." Mr. Kang leaned forward slowly. "Where were you taken afterward, that night? Where did they bring you?" I thought back. "A woman from the neighborhood took me in until the authorities came. She had a small apartment above a laundry on Mapo Street. I stayed there for 2 nights before they moved me to the first care home." "And the dumpster? Do you remember which building it was behind?" I closed my eyes. Street sounds. Rain. The smell of old food and wet concrete. A red door on the building across the alley. Paint peeling at the bottom edge. "There was a red door," I said. "Old building. There was a numbers plate on the wall beside it. I remember the last 3 numbers because they were the same as my birthday." Mr. Kang was already reaching for his phone. Jin found the building in 6 hours. It was still standing, barely. An old commercial block in Mapo that had been partially converted into storage units and then abandoned when the developer ran out of funding. The alley behind it matched every detail I had described. Mr. Kang took me with him. He did not make a ceremony out of it, just told me to get in the car, and I did. The alley was narrow and smelled of damp stone. The red door was still there, the paint now almost entirely gone. The dumpster had been replaced with a newer one, but the position was the same, pushed up against the left wall, with a gap behind it large enough for a small child to hide in. I stood in front of that gap for a long time. Then I crouched down and pressed my hand into the space between the dumpster and the wall. The concrete back there was cracked and uneven. One section near the base of the wall had separated slightly from the rest, a small hollow, barely visible unless you were looking for it at ground level. My father had known this alley. He had known exactly where to send me and exactly where to tell me, without words, to be safe. My fingers found something cold inside the hollow, a small metal case sealed with a basic combination lock, old, weathered, but intact. I pulled it out with both hands and stood up slowly. The case sat on Mr. Kang's desk for 20 minutes before anyone touched it. So-yeon examined the lock. Jin photographed it from every angle. Mr. Kang stood to the side with his arms folded, watching. I sat in the leather chair across from the desk and felt strangely calm. "The lock is a 4-digit combination," So-yeon said. "Standard model from the early 2000s. "My birthday," I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. My father pressed something into my hands and then hid this where I was hiding. He knew I might be the one to find it someday. I looked at the case. He would have used the one number he knew I would never forget. I walked to the desk. So-yeon stepped back. I entered my birthday, month and day, and the lock clicked open on the first try. Inside the case were 2 things, a folded document and a USB drive. The document was a signed testimony, my father's handwriting, dated the week before he died. In it, he described a series of illegal financial transactions he had witnessed while working as an informant, transactions tied to a network of powerful figures, including the name of a government official who'd been publicly celebrated for decades. The USB drive, Jin confirmed an hour later, contained digital copies of the evidence to back every word of it up. My father had not just saved Mr. Kang's life that night. He had died protecting proof that could bring down people far more dangerous than any street-level criminal, and he had trusted his 8-year-old daughter to hold it. The name in the testimony was someone I recognized, not personally, from the news, from speeches I had half-watched on television in care home common rooms over the years, a senior official who had built an entire public image around justice and order. That was O's real client, not a rival criminal faction. A man with government power and everything to lose if my father's evidence ever reached the right people. He had spent 12 years making sure it didn't. And when he discovered, through his network, that my father's daughter had resurfaced and was living inside the estate of a man with the resources to actually use the evidence, he had sent O to neutralize the situation quietly. It had not been quiet. Mr. Kang looked at the name in the testimony for a long time without speaking. Then he picked up his phone and made a call. I was not meant to hear. I heard it anyway. He spoke for less than 3 minutes. When he hung up, his face was completely composed. "Journalists," he said simply. "The right ones, people who cannot be bought." "Is that enough?" I asked. He looked at me. "Your father made sure the evidence was airtight. All it needed was someone willing to use it." He paused. "He chose well, hiding it with you. You held it safe for 12 years without even knowing it." My throat tightened. I looked at the small metal case on the desk and thought about an 8-year-old girl hiding behind a dumpster and a man who knew he might not come back but made sure his daughter would be protected even by things she could not yet understand. "He believed in me before I believed in myself," I said softly. The story broke 6 days later. I watched it on the small television in my room, the same room where 4 months ago I had cried silently into my pillow and told myself no one was coming. News anchors with careful faces and tight voices read the headline twice, as if they needed to hear it again themselves. The official resigned by evening. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the screen for a long time after the broadcast ended. Song Yi knocked on my door and came in without waiting for an answer, which was very much her style now. She sat beside me and did not say anything. She did not need to. Eventually, I stood up, pulled on my jacket, and walked down the long corridor to the study. Mr. Kang was at his desk. He looked up when I came in. Neither of us spoke for a moment. "I don't know what I am in this house anymore," I said finally. "I'm not a maid. I don't know what to call it." You're the daughter of the man who saved my life, he said, and the woman who helped me finish what he started. That doesn't need a title. I nodded slowly. He looked at me with an expression I was starting to learn, the one he wore when he was about to say something he had been holding on to for a while. There are more people connected to that testimony, he said quietly. The network your father uncovered didn't end with one name. Oh, confirmed as much before he stopped talking. I felt it then, the familiar pull. Not dread, something closer to purpose. Then we're not done, I said. No, Mr. Kang said. He almost smiled. We're just beginning. I sat down across from him and folded my hands on the desk, and for the first time in my life I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, not invisible, not in hiding, not afraid. Ready.